preparing to live stream the meeting.
Yeah, that's it. You're away.
I'm away. So then I just shut all these down, except shut the YouTube down and everything.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll end up with the feedback which you were getting earlier. And
Thank you very much.
You can let everybody in now. It's quite all right.
Well, it will be when I can shut these down.
Yeah.
Right.
You okay, Linda? Can't hear you, I'm afraid.
I'm just saying there's no need for you to be here, really.
He was just talking me through trying to get in.
Okay.
We've been...
As soon as we're up and running, I'm off.
Oh, okay.
He was just talking me through going through and live streaming the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry we're a bit late, but we started early, but it was just trying to get through.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hello, Vanessa. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? You're right.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Good evening, John. Can you hear me okay? Can you unmute, John? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got you.
Oh, brilliant. Pat, I don't know if you're there. Who else is here?
Connecting.
Yeah, and I'll disappear. Good luck.
Thanks, David.
Just switch the YouTube off when you're ready.
I thank you very much, David.
Right,
and I can let Councillor Pam Wiltshire in, can't I, Linda? Now, hello, Adrian.
She's not a councillor.
Sorry, no, Pam Wiltshire, but I can let her in, can't I?
Not yet.
Sorry, this is all a bit.
Right.
Okay.
You're okay now, Christine?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, David. I couldn't have done it without you.
Hey, no trouble. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, David.
Hello, everybody. Sorry we're a little late. David's had to talk me through.
No, we're not late.
Doing the meeting and live streaming, so we're not too bad for time, I don't think.
No, not at all. We'll just wait for everybody to get here.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, lovely. There's some lovely flowers behind you there.
I like to have some flowers. It cheers you up, doesn't it, having flowers? So
yeah.
So all being well, we've got the recording of the meeting going and we've got the live streaming on YouTube. So we've got it sorted. So are we all okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Hello, Richard, even though it says Pam.
Hello.
Good evening, Richard.
Pam's got a deep voice.
Oh, lovely. All right, I'm just having a look at my list. So we've got Adrienne, we've got Pat, we've got John, we've got Richard. I'm hoping that, well, who are we missing? Mike?
Yeah.
Terry. Tony and Terry. Yeah. Mike, Tony and Terry. We'll give them a few more minutes and then we can get started. Would you believe this is only the second meeting I've chaired all year?
Oh, wow.
You can have some of mine.
No, Pat, that's...
What are you talking about? It's only March the 8th.
Stop it.
I'm ticking them off now.
Actually, I did notice, I know on the last bit of the agenda here is the meeting for the next date, the date for the next meeting. And it's only a couple of days before a couple of days before the election.
It is. It was pre-booked, and that was something I wanted to raise with yourselves, whether you wanted to change the date of the meeting.
Well, I raised that issue when the proposed dates came out.
Yeah.
Because there was that one that's 2 days before polling day, and I very much doubt finance and admin will be able to decide anything.
Yeah.
2 days before polling day. And then there was another meeting which was after polling day, which I thought was even more ambitious.
Oh, well, that was because nobody was sure it was actually going to happen, John.
If you bear with me, year end should be done in April, and if I can squeeze a finance and admin in, I'll call an extraordinary one to discuss the year end.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that in a sec when we get into the actual meeting itself. Let's not do anything just yet. And then we shall get started very shortly. What's the time? I think we've got a minute to go. Oh, I've got 7 o'clock, so let's get cracking.
I'm just making sure there's nobody else sitting in the waiting room. Michael's just come in. MZ, I'm not sure who MZ is, but
Miriam Zaccarelli, I would think.
There we
Thank
go.
you, sorry.
It's Mike. Hello, Mike. And there's Miriam. Hello.
Hello, Miriam.
Mike,
Hello, Mike.
I see you've got a new addition to the fleet over at work.
Yeah, brand new lorry for somebody who's our Arctic driver, who's going up and down to the Mendips all day, every day.
Oh God! So it's not yours then? It's not your new toy.
No, mine's a year old now.
Okay, that's still fair enough. Fair enough. Lovely.
Yeah.
Right, so we got Mike. I am going to get started. We'll get cracking then, shall we? So let's kick off. Have we got any public participation at all? I can't. Is that?
Doesn't look like there's any public on.
No, I just wanted
No.
to check because that is Richard. I just wanted to check that Pam didn't want to ask anything at all. Lovely. Oh, pardon me, I missed the apologies. Do we have any actual apologies? I know we're missing Tony and Terry.
I haven't
haven't.
had any.
I haven't either. I will just
Okay.
double check.
Let you double check.
Yeah, sorry. It's very slow.
That's all right.
No, nothing since I left work. No, there's
Nope.
nothing.
Okay, lovely then. And so we've so declarations of interest. Is there anyone who needs to declare any interest in any of the items on tonight's agenda? Don't think there's only a couple of items anyway. Oh, John and Adrian. Go, John first.
Well, only in so much as we're talking about the grants procedure, and I'm a representative of organisations that put in grant applications. But as we're not this evening deciding
Yeah.
on awarding of any grants, I don't feel that there's any reason to exclude oneself from the procedures.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, John. Adrian.
Ditto.
All right, thank you. That's noted. Thank you both for stating that. Lovely. So why don't we get in then to item number 3, which is to approve the minutes of the last meeting, which was held all the way back in November. That was the only one other meeting that I've chaired so far this year. I've gone through them. I can't see anything that needs to be amended. Does anybody else have anything at all? No. So can I propose them from the chair then? Anybody like to second? We'll go with Pat. I saw Pat slightly first. Okay. All those in favour? Lovely. Richard, I can't see you, mate. Are you for or against that, or abstaining? Got a little hand there from Richard. Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's move on to agenda item number 4. So this is the grant report. So who would like to kick us off with this one? Miriam, did you want to start with this one? Give us an overview of that lovely report that you've created.
I can just explain that that the grants process was under review last year, but that was paused and then it's been continued based on some of the feedback during the grants meeting last time on how to improve it for future. And based on work that the town clerk has done, the end of the report is a draft. Everything in blue is a draft new application process, which is for your consideration tonight.
Yep, lovely. Did anyone have any questions directly for Miriam at all, or any points they wanted to raise? John?
So I'll find the mute button eventually. I'm so used to using Teams all the time. This one's different and it confuses me every time. Yeah, I had a couple of things, please. I mean, first of all, I think it's great to see a tighter set of guidance and outline on the application. I was a little bit confused though. The agenda item 4 identified some items for the new application form, and then there was the details on the main form, which obviously covered stuff in more detail. But there were 2 points that were mentioned on page 5, section 3 of the agenda item, 3.4 and 3.5, which I thought were extremely restrictive grants, or extremely restrictive in terms of what they would allow a group to do, in not covering running costs like salaries or rent. Then you are taking out any organisation on a local level that uses staff to do anything. you could just wipe out an awful lot of organisations with that. And grant money must be spent within 6 months, but we do 12 monthly grants. So an organisation, a project might be an ongoing project that would run for more than 6 months. And I know it says other than exceptional circumstances, but I can think of a lot of circumstances where an organisation might be running a project over a longer period for organisations that are delivering ongoing work. So I feel that those 2 points could be extremely restrictive for anything other than sort of one-off event type organisations.
Yeah, thank you, John. I do agree about the time frame involved. I think that would be very restrictive. I think 12 months is more appropriate. Adrienne?
Yeah, the festival would have a huge problem with 12 months actually, because the grants come out in September and it's obviously the following September that we do the event. So I do think that that needs to be looked at in terms of maybe there needs to be a 6-month interim report as to make certain that the funding is going to be used. Obviously, it does make a difference if it's for what it's for. So I do think that one just needs tightening up a little bit. I'm not unhappy with it, but it just needs to reflect more accurately, I think, the needs of the local groups. The one on the salaries and staff is an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously, you know, if you look at anybody like Area Board or anything like that, it's capital grants only, isn't it? And so I can see where you're coming from, Miriam and Linda. I think what I would like, I wouldn't like to pass it today, although I actually think it's right. It would have affected a couple of groups I can think of at the moment, and maybe, you know, we've got to be a bit careful perhaps on how we vote on this. But I do believe that maybe we need a little bit more detail about which groups it might have affected, rather than just reporting it, rather than putting it through tonight. I can think of Melksham Seniors put in for £1,000, I think, to try and employ somebody. Obviously, totally unsuccessfully, because there haven't been any events since then for us to be able to actually do it with. And obviously would have affected Age Friendly as well, because their grant was for staffing. I can't think of any.
Advice.
Citizens Advice. Yep, Citizens Advice. Thank you, John. So I think maybe we just need to look.
Hub, the Transworlds. I don't know if they're going to use theirs specifically for the employment of and running their cafe.
But I do think that maybe we can. We could. I think I would ask for a deferral on those particular 2 items, understanding where they're coming from, because capital is more important. Well, this is capital versus revenue. My God, it's a nightmare. Yeah. Revenue is vitally important, actually.
Yeah.
But could we just have a look at whether or not, you know, which organisations would it affect, and if it fundamentally affects what we're trying to achieve, then it has to be dropped, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I do have you, but Linda, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just the thinking behind it. If an organisation becomes to rely on the Town Council for grants every year to fund salaries, that should be a little bit concerning. It's more about projects and facilitating projects, and pay to have people there to do it, and if that involves using people, but that's the thinking behind it.
I understand that.
Citizens Advice, they're a separate entity to grants, because there is legislation that allows a town council to grant fund a Citizens Advice Bureau. So they don't necessarily fall under the category of applying for a grant to the town council in the same respect as a community organisation.
Yeah. No, I see, Linda, I can see where you're coming from, but John, what were your thoughts?
Well, what I was going to say is, I think that, I mean, that's undoubtedly the case, Linda, but of course, at the moment give it as a grant to Citizens Advice. So with the grants policy, if this went through as it was today, the council would have to change how it gave that grant, because it would be negating its ability under its existing policies to give that grant. I think that there are 2 issues here. There's the difference between paying for staff where you're talking about staff who are actually delivering a service to residents in the town, and paying for staff where you are contributing towards effectively administration or management costs for an organisation. So I've been in meetings before where there's been organisations mentioned and people have said, we're not going to give a grant just to pay the chief executive's salary. And that's the sort of thing I would wholeheartedly agree with. But where you have organisations where they are effectively employing people to deliver a piece of work within the community, that's still salary. Or you might have, let's say, for instance, we don't have a community hub at the moment, but let's say somebody did come along and say, actually, we want to set something up, despite everything as a council we've talked about. Someone came along tomorrow and said, we want to set something up. We've got a group of 20 volunteers who are prepared to run it all, but we need a grant to help pay the rent. Hell, we've kind of done that kind of thing before with certain projects that were in empty shops. We wouldn't be able to do that with this policy in place. So I think the principle behind the thinking is probably right in terms of we've got to find a tougher way of being able to identify the funding is being used to deliver services to residents. But the wording that's there at the moment is so, I mean, Pat, you know, the number of grants that it's less so now because people are used to it. But when the capital only issue first came in at area board and the restriction on us on what we were able to fund and what we weren't able to fund, and the number of things we had to stop funding that was so important. And, you know, through your health and wellbeing fund, when you were chairing that, you were able to pick certain bits up. But if you hadn't been allowed to pay for staffing on those, you wouldn't have been able to do most of the stuff that was done.
Exactly.
The difference between revenue and capital, it was very hard to get your head around to begin with, but people are beginning to understand exactly what they can apply for grants for now.
No, exactly. Adrian, did you want to have something with that?
No, I'm just listening.
Do you think it should be a part of probably the, because I know we were obviously going to make sure that the grants process was a little tighter this year. Is that something that we should just be looking at on an individual basis? You know, when people are putting their grant applications in, you know, really understanding what the level of funding is supposed to be for and where exactly it's going. Because you're right, John, if it's going to just subsidize someone's, you know, big fat paycheck, that's not what we're here for.
But, and the other point I would raise actually, Linda, you made the point it's about stopping organisations becoming reliant on funding from the town council. But there are a number of organisations where the town council have funded projects for years and years and years, as many years as I've been on the town council, because actually it's far more economically viable for the town council to pay a voluntary organisation, a community organisation to deliver something than it is for us to fund it ourselves. Christmas Lights being a great example, Carnival being a great example, Food and River Festival, previously the Food Festival being a great example. These are all projects that if the town council tried to fund, we wouldn't be able to deliver anything like what those community groups can deliver. So I just think that we've got to be careful that we don't take out of it the ability that, you know, as a town, we do benefit from a huge number of organisations that deliver a lot for us, but do it with seed funding from the council.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Did anyone else have any thoughts on that at all? Linda, sorry.
I could just come back on John's point. I didn't make myself clear. What I meant was relying year on year to pay staff in an organisation. That's the danger. If an organisation can't, I mean, they'll have a financial plan. If they're going to engage staff, they must have, they must know about the income and the ability to be able to pay those staff.
Yes, yeah, Linda. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah,
we become reliant on the town council to fund salaries.
Yeah, of course. And then what happens one year when we can't deliver?
And I'm not talking about regular projects. That's exactly what the grant funding pot is for.
Yep. Okay, lovely. I had Pat and then Adrian.
Well, my understanding of what a grant is for is based on what John was saying earlier on, is for something that they can't raise the funds for anything else. I mean, if you've got a little group that is meeting every week in a hall or something, and they need, say, £20 a week for the rent, that to me seems fair enough. But if they were asking for £1,000 so that they could employ somebody, that's not. But if it was, because, you know, if they're not being able to raise the amount of money in funds or whatever they do, then it seems to me that it's, you know, it should be sustainable in some way.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say. I wouldn't like to say that everything has to be a capital grant, and I wouldn't like to say that you can, as you know, as has been suggested, pay staff to do stuff. But you know, there is a case for help to deliver a service, and you know, it's a difficult one. I wouldn't like to make a hard and fast rule. But we do need to have some kind of guiding, some sort of guide as to which one we do and which ones we don't, and it's got to be clear so that we're not seen to be favouring one group above another.
Yes, Pat, but I do think that this is where it comes back to really thoroughly assessing each individual application and getting a true understanding of exactly where every penny is supposed to go, how many people in Melksham specifically they're going to be helping, how they're going to be doing that. And, you know, it's like John was saying, when we were talking about the grants last year, when we were delivering them, we do need a more robust system. And it can't just be a tick box exercise where people just fill out a form and they expect to get money from the council. They'll only get out as much as they put in. So we do need to see a lot of context in the grant application itself. That's personally what it comes down to for me, but that's just my opinion. Adrienne?
Yeah, thanks. Linda, you clarified that for me really quite nicely, I have to be honest. And, you know, I understood that very clearly, that projects, groups delivering projects, community groups delivering projects will definitely, you know, be able to apply for grants. Whereas if you're just applying for a grant which is going to cover staffing, it's a bit more difficult. But I mean, I'm just wondering, and it's not a perfect solution by any chance, but could we not say under 3.4 grants will not normally cover running costs like salaries or rent, because that gives you the exception that you're looking for some groups that might need it. But if you are putting in a grant for a salary or rent, you are going to have to come up with exceptional circumstances as to why that would happen. That would be my suggestion. So grants will not normally cover running costs like salaries or rents, but we welcome applications for this, and they will be looked at on an individual basis.
Yeah, okay, thank you. John?
It's a sensible caveat, but I'll just make one point. The example Pat just made that everyone nodded at and said, yep, exactly, which was that an organisation meets a couple of times a week and pays £20 rent for a room to use. That would be fine, but paying £1,000 for a member of staff to deliver it wouldn't. Just remember that the cost of the £20 a week, twice a week over a year is £1,000. And when that group's putting in an application, so if they know that they could get the room rent, but they couldn't get the member of staff covered, then they just say, well, we're asking for the room rent. But how do we know what that money's spent on? Because you've got a total project cost and we're asking them to match fund it. I think there is a necessity for having a degree of control on that, absolutely. But I think we need to be thinking about what actually is the worth of the project that is being delivered for the community. And a blanket ban, even one with the caveat that Adrienne's talking about, a blanket ban discourages people from doing that. And I think that more and more and more, we are going to be relying on community groups delivering facilities in our town.
It's whether it's voluntary or paid, though, John, isn't it?
Yeah, but your best voluntary organisations need to be organised.
Yeah, I'm not.
So a voluntary organisation can be voluntary led through its management, and it can have volunteers who are delivering the bulk of what is done. But almost all of them every single organisation out there, other than the really micro ones, will have a degree of professional leadership in them to make sure that they are viable and sustainable.
Thank you, guys. Pat, you're on mute.
Which leads me to the other point I wanted to make earlier, is that when I remember talking to Reese about this, about the grants that on the area board, was that we don't always know exactly what they spent it on, or at least I'd like some kind of a report on what it was spent on. I mean, if it was, for example, for I'm just taking something out of the air, a trip to learn something, taking a load of kids to do a course on cricket or something, I would like some kind of a report back as to how it went, and how many kids were taken and what they gleaned from. I'd like something back from the people that we gave the money to.
Yes.
Now, you know, I can't remember if it was in your report or not, Miriam, but that is the kind of feedback that I would like, and that would give us an indication for future grants as to what kind of use was made for it. And we rarely got anything back. I know Reese used to email people and ask them, but we hardly ever got anything back, did we, John?
No, it's a massive problem.
But we do have a monitoring form at Town Council, and we have taken money off people in the past who haven't filled in their monitoring form, and they are reminded of that when they're putting in their next application. I mean, because, you know, when you see a report like Miriam's, and it says, she's put letters in from people saying thank you. If it's your organisation, you always think, oh my God, I hope I've said thank you. And it's the same with the monitoring form. You know, I mean, it's one of those things. It's really important that as a town council, we send out those monitoring forms. And if you don't fill them in, you will get a reduction in your grant for the following year.
Yeah, thank you. Miriam?
Just want to say, on the last round, every single person who applied, they did have their monitoring form at the same time as their application, so they all did send those in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miriam.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
You could also add that if we don't receive a monitoring form detailing all the people that it's benefited and what the money's gone on, that a grant will not be considered the following year.
Yeah, I do think this comes back to what we've discussed in the past about actually this is more to do with our process. Okay, and setting a very good expectation amongst the community that actually if you're applying for a grant with Melksham Town Council, there will be a set of criteria that you will need to meet, and that we will be holding people accountable in terms of following up with us in terms of what we can see that has actually been done to benefit our community. I wouldn't want to put a lot of restrictions in place, because I do think we should welcome applications across the board. And yes, we will thoroughly discuss them. And I think that's the key thing. That meeting that we have that usually takes a very long time to go through each of the grants, each of those do need to be discussed in depth by councillors. I know there's already a lot of work that gets done by the officers prior to that hitting the meeting. But I just think that we should encourage as many people to apply, but, you know, set the bar not so ridiculously high that it's unachievable, but put a very clear expectation. Linda, thoughts?
I was just going to say there is also a change proposed in that people can apply all year round. So each finance and admin committee, we would be considering grant applications all the way through the year. And then each quarter or after each meeting, we can report a good news story in the min about people that we've actually supported through grant funding. That means that organisations who set up partway through the year, maybe after September, don't miss out or have to wait 12 months.
Okay.
It just keeps the positive news as well more regularly.
Yeah.
People that start something up sort of midway through the year who have perhaps missed the September deadline, they've got, you know, possibly December, March. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Sorry, I've missed that. I've missed that completely. Where is that? Sorry.
Oh no, that's clear with now.
I have seen you, John. I have seen you.
Sorry, that was the intention.
No, it is. I picked that up.
Oh right, fine. I might have missed it, John.
That's what we do at the almshouses as well. We accept grants all year round.
And of course, area board does.
Yeah. The only thing I can foresee as a potential danger with that is accepting large grants all year round. I would want to happily welcome small grants and medium-sized grants even all throughout the year, but I think the large ones that take a lot of planning for organizations. You know, they've got their schedule of funds built around when they need to apply for their large grants. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one.
You could treat them separately. In past lives, the
Yeah.
CFP, all the big ones like Party in the Park, at the beginning of the administration, the council resolves to agree to grant fund those organisations by X term.
They're the red circle ones, aren't they? So
Yes.
should we say the red
Yes.
circle ones,
Yeah.
we just do them yearly,
Yeah.
but it's all the little ones?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Up to 1,000. I mean, I'm not sure whether we've actually, I can't remember whether we discussed a limit on the small ones.
Okay. Sorry, John, you had your hand up. Oh, and then Richard.
It was a slightly different direction I was sticking my hand up about, which was that going back to using the area board as an example, very difficult with its capital grants, but in theory with its health and wellbeing grants, and certainly this was the case with the capital grants back in the days when we had revenue, which was that one of the things we had to measure grants against was the JSNA, which is meant to be the document that identifies the strategic aims, strategic objectives for the community area. I do wonder if, and this might actually help a little bit with this concern about organisations becoming reliant on the town council for their funding, because it could be that as a town council, we could say we want to identify each year certain sort of key criteria which identify what the town council identifies as being its priorities for the next 12 months. So it might say that it wants to target antisocial behaviour, or target social isolation, or target connectivity, or I don't know, you know, you could pick 2, 3, 4, however many targets for the town council would say, or topics the town council say was its priorities, and then ask people who are putting in grants that they need to identify how their grant will help with meeting the ambitions of the town council, meeting those social objectives of the town council. So that you know, at least what we're actually doing is making people think about what they're asking for, and at the very least not just returning the same grant application in year after year after year.
Yep, or different categories, like a lot of grant places do as well. So they have different categories.
Well, we've got categories identified on the papers before us this evening. What I'm saying is that I'm suggesting that each year we could say, as a council, we've chosen 3 or 4, 2 or 3, however many sort of strands that we want all our grants. We want, you know, we want to know that the however many £1,000 we put into supporting community groups in Melksham over the in that council year will have had an impact on these areas.
Yes.
And we want reports back that tell us impact on those areas. So at the end of the year, we can write a report as a council and say, as a council, we invested £40,000 in grants to small groups and organisations, and this is what we got for our money.
Justification.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably find that a lot of the grants we give anyway, you know, can be linked back to a lot of different areas anyway. Richard, you had your hand up.
Just a question. I support everything that's been said, and I would like to thank Miriam for the work that she's done on this. But I've just got a query on Miriam's job title. In the minutes of the 9th of November, it talks about her being Finance Development Officer. Is this correct, or should it be Community? I always thought it was Community Development Officer.
Community Development Officer.
Okay, the minutes are saying that she's Finance Development Officer.
That was something that was set up on mod.gov. It has been amended since, but it was set up at that time. So I have amended it since.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Adrian, did I see your hand up? Did you want to say something? Oh, sorry, and Miriam, pardon me.
Just there is a section in there asking for evidence that the community needs your project, so that in with what John was saying about linking to priorities that
Yep.
we identified, so we can tie that in at that point.
Yeah, lovely.
Well, I did make a proposal that we
Yep.
accepted it with a caveat.
Okay.
With a caveat being grants will not normally cover running costs like salaries or rents, but the committee will look at these and make decisions based on the needs of Melksham.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a caveat. It
Yeah.
solves, because I think we could talk about this for the next hour and not get anywhere.
Probably.
If I'm totally honest. And
Yeah.
there is a new council coming in after May, and it might want to relook at this. But I would like to propose that we do that at the moment, so that it is covered, and that there is a possibility that people could get salaries. Because I think that otherwise we're just not going to get anywhere. So that is a proposal. If anybody wants to second it.
Okay.
I want to ask.
Wait. John had your hand up, but not to second.
No, I had a question and it's gone out of my head. It will come back in 1 second.
Mike's had his
Mike
hand
wants to speak.
Mike's had his hand up for a while.
I'm
Mike.
happy to second Adrian's proposal.
Right, hang on. So I've got a seconder, but I've got Mike with his hand up. Sorry, Mike, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. I'll just put my hand up to second the proposal, but it can be me, Richard, or whoever else.
Okay. Just as long as I think there's flexibility for the new council to look at these things and they're not set in stone. John, thoughts?
Yeah, well, the only other question I had was with the grants being awarded at every Finance and Admin Committee meeting. In the past, Finance and Admin has made a recommendation to full council to award the grants. So what this will do, well, it will do two things. It will take away from full council actually being the final arbiter on whether grants are awarded or not. And one of the reasons why full council has done it is because what we've normally ended up doing is grabbing some money in order to be able to award more than Finance and Admin would have been able to afford to award. But that's been done by looking at them in their totality. I think that there would be a challenge, and it might be that this would be a good thing, of course, but I think that there might be a challenge if in the third or fourth quarter of the year, we were saying to full council, we need you to give us some more money for grants because we're going to run out. And rather than looking at all the grants in their totality and saying, actually, some of the ones we're going to trim down or not give, they would have been given at the start of the year.
Yes.
You know, we all know, Pat, you know, of area board, it's much easier to get a grant through area board if you put it through to the May meeting than if you put it through to the February meeting.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, and I think that'll be a challenge for the new council to deal with. But
so the recommendation that we put in there, if I can, because we're taking the large grants out of this. So we're putting a cap on the grant, as I understood it, we're putting a cap on the grant level for these rolling grant schemes.
Yes.
Could we actually say that if we've got, I don't know, £40,000 in the grant pot, for want of a number, that each meeting can't award, effectively in quarter one, it can't award more than a total of £10,000 worth of grant.
Yeah.
By the end of quarter two, it can't have awarded more than a total of 20,000. So if in quarter one they only award £4,000 of grants, quarter two's got 16,000 to play with.
Yeah,
in quarter one, if they've spent the full 10,000, quarter two's only got 10,000 to play with. You've gone muted.
Yeah, that sounds fair and measured and level-headed and
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I couldn't for a minute.
Sorry, John. Yeah, no, that sounds quite reasonable. Adrian, did I see your hand up? Did I see whose hand was up? No, okay, that's fine.
We've got a motion on the table,
We
Chair.
do.
Can I just ask Adrienne, would you be prepared to accept that as a friendly amendment to?
Oh yeah, absolutely, John. No problems at all.
Yep.
I'm sure we can let officers tidy the wording up, but the principle.
What I'd like from this committee is for a recommendation for the new grant policy and the new grant application, which will be completed in time for full council on the 22nd, so that then full council gets the opportunity as well to see what's going to happen. Because if it's agreed, we will have to change the delegation to the finance and admin to award the grants without referral back to council. That's perfectly entitled and able to do that.
But the red circled grants, do they still have to go via full council?
Yes, what I'll do
That's
is
fine. And
yeah,
then the smaller ones, they can just be done by finance and
on
admin.
a rolling basis, yeah. And of
Yeah.
course, members would be entitled to attend, or you
Yep.
know, would be made aware of who'd applied.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Sorry, I've just thrown it open.
Have you put a cap on the what constitutes the maximum grant that finance and admin can award?
You want to suggest one? Because we have
We've got big grants and small grants, haven't we? Miriam, what's a big grant?
It was over 500.
Right.
because
I think it
I
needs
would
to be higher.
1,000.
I'm going to say
1,000?
5,000. I thought was the biggest ones.
I'm sorry.
No, there's you've got your ring fence ones, which are quite big.
Oh, I see.
These are the community pot. This is the community pot.
Even
isn't
for the
it?
community pot, would you say 1,000 is more
I think
appropriate?
1,000 is.
I think 1,000. Yeah.
Because I think if they
I was
want
actually
any
going
more
to
than
suggest 2.5, but
Yeah. Would there be anything stopping an organisation from applying more than once in the year, though?
yeah, the part of the criteria you can apply once. In,
If they're
That's not
if-
going to be high enough, then I don't think.
2.5 is probably more
Yeah.
appropriate if
Yeah.
we're saying once and once only.
okay.
John,
I-
what do you think?
well, I'd actually like to turn that round slightly. I
Hmm.
think the power of, if we're saying it has to be project based, and for the small grants, I think it is that it has to be project based. Then I think the system the area board has that says you can't do more than 2 grants, but each grant has to be for a specific project. So rather than saying to a group you can apply for 2,500 to do a number of pieces of work, say to them, pick the 2 pieces of work that are really going to make an impact and put a grant in for each of them as and when you're ready.
Yep.
And don't have a maximum of 2 grants for any organisation, but it has to be for a project. And then that actually can be really the big difference, I think, between what we currently call our small grants and our major grants, because our major grants, the big 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 plus ones, they are actually supporting funds for an organisation to be able to deliver services in the town.
Yes.
The funding pot that finance and admin will be giving away will be to support specific projects being delivered within the town.
Yes. And there is a difference there, isn't there?
There's
There is-
huge difference.
Yeah, there is huge difference. So what does everybody think? So 2.5 grand max for the year, up to 2 times they can apply for the year, within the year, specifically for projects, dealt with specifically by the Finance and Admin Committee. Red circled grants would still go via full council.
At the first full council meeting of the
Yeah,
administration, because what that does is those groups that come every year,
yeah.
financially forward plan as well.
Exactly. So we had a proposal. Then do we need to add any of that as an amendment, or you're
I
okay?
think proposal to support the new grant funding criteria with the
Yep.
caveat that where is it? I've written it down somewhere. Hang on. Grants will not normally cover salaries or rent, but we do welcome applications which will be looked at on an individual basis in certain. Well, we need to be a bit more clear about that.
Yeah.
But we
I'm happy for you to tighten it up, Linda.
yeah,
Just to sort of make it clear that whilst
Yeah.
not they're not normally covered, there are exceptions to that.
yeah. And it will depend on the quality of your application. It really just comes down to that, doesn't it?
But that becomes a lot easier to police and enforce as well,
Yeah.
because you're only
Yeah.
talking about project-based funding
Yes.
Yeah.
rather than supporting organisation level funding.
Yeah.
But that
Yes.
does mean we need to come up with another set of criteria for the large grants.
And that's
Yeah.
where really the large grants is where it needs to be super, super thorough.
Yeah.
Again, there can't be an expectation for these groups that we're just going to give them a check every single year. They've really got to be able to show what they're putting back into the community, and we need to be able to measure that.
So can I just get the proposal right?
Mhm.
said about recommending the new grant application process to full council. You'll have all the criteria. For
Yep.
Council with the change to the what's that? Lost it. That it will whilst we wouldn't normally grant salaries and revenue in terms of rent, we will still look at applications in exceptional circumstances. I'll have a think about what we can sort of list.
Yeah,
so it's clear, because we might put people off that have got a really genuine, actually this is a really good project.
of course.
But probably caveat as well that we would not fund salaries on a year-on-year basis.
Yeah, I think that comes back to like what John was saying. What we're basically trying to say to the community is we're not going to fund the CEO's salary, okay? But we will look at what other employees you've got and what value they're putting back into the community. But again, that's for each grant application to be looked at thoroughly. So we've got a proposal then.
Well, hang on a second. We've got an extra one that John put in that I agreed to, which was the.
Was that an amendment?
It was, yeah, which was that.
We cap the total.
Cap.
So you
I think
each
we do them
quarter.
You want them separately, Linda?
You want them separately, do you?
for clarity. It might be easy.
That's fine, Linda. Whatever.
Committee is recommending
Right.
grant application process with the change about salaries and revenue, and then it recommends that finance and admin are given delegated authority to do the grants, roll through every single
The small ones
save the
throughout the
large,
year. Okay.
and the ceiling on grants through the year is 2,500, but there can be 2 applications for 2 different projects from the same group.
But
Yes.
John also said that each quarter should be limited to a quarter of the
And that, yeah.
budget. So yeah, you can only say it's easy with 40,000, isn't it? 10,000, 10,000.
10,000. Right. So let's do the
25%. Don't you?
Yeah.
25%.
25%, and whatever it is, yeah.
So let's do the first one first, obviously.
Sorry to be a pain, Vanessa, but we keep talking about the grants fund.
Yes.
But we have effectively separated, we've split the grants into 2 separate funds now.
Yes.
The major grants and the rolling grants. And I think we need to make sure that in the wording that we're choosing, because I think we've talked a lot about the criteria for the rolling grants and the stuff that finance and admin will be able to put through and all the rest of it. We need to look also at the major grants and what the process for that is, because I haven't heard any detail about that yet, because we've concentrated on the little ones.
Yeah.
So
Miriam and I will work on criteria for the.
I was just going to say, Linda, if we do this, first of all, I think, do we need a separate resolution to say, let's split them so we've got 2 groups? Do you need that?
No, because we're going to put it on council.
Put it for council, but what I'd like to see, and tell me what the rest of you think, is we've got a meeting in another couple of weeks coming up, some really specific detail about what the criteria is going to be for those major grants.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what the concern has always been, hasn't it, John? You know, the quality of the application, the content of what's in there, the follow up with what they've actually done with those projects. You know, we need to be able to see that. So, Linda, do you want to remind us again what's our first proposal?
One is to recommend the grant application process, that with the caveat that Adrian said about salaries, and we'll come up with some examples of where we wouldn't normally, but there could be exceptions.
Yep. Okay.
Second one is that grants will be looked at each finance and admin. So each quarter there is 10,000 available. Anything left from that 10,000 will be added to the full.
25% of the grant fund. The small grant fund.
Say 25%.
10,000 was the figure I plucked out of the air.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, say 25%.
I think it's a bit lower than that.
Yeah.
Well, it's just that every year it's going to change. So 25%
So
is
we look at 25% of the
yeah. Right. So shall we vote on the first proposal? So so Adrian proposed it. I believe Richard
seconded it.
it. So all those in favour?
This isn't the major grants, this is the small grants.
This is the small,
small grants, yeah. Lovely.
Unanimous.
Yep, lovely. Okay, fantastic. Now let's look at the second proposal.
Finance and admin will consider grants at each of its meetings throughout the municipal year.
Yes.
And we'll have we'll divide the year's grant funding available up into 4.
Yep.
And use a quarter each time. However, at the first quarter, if it's not all taken, that would be rolled over to the next quarter.
Rolls over.
Yeah.
And with the specific criteria that John set out, 2.5 grand, 2 times a year.
That'll be the maximum.
Different groups. Lovely. So did anybody want to propose that? John, did you propose that one?
I'm happy to propose that.
Yeah,
But
anyone? Sorry, John.
I'd just like to insert into that wording, Linda, which is obvious if you think about it, but I think sometimes stating the obvious is a good thing to do, that whilst there is a maximum grant pot that could be given out in any quarter, there is no requirement to give out that grant pot in that quarter, because what we've got to face, what am I trying to say? What we've got to cover off with our criteria is if we've got a really poor grant that comes to the council, and we don't award it, and the applicant says, well, hang on, you had 10,000 to give away and you've only given away 2,000, why haven't you funded mine? You've got to give out 10,000, you've got to fund my grant. We've got to have the protection there to say that it's not an expectation you give out. The 10,000 in a quarter is a cap.
Yes.
Not a target.
And also doing it this way, if we do get an application that isn't very good, an officer might be able to work with that group to improve.
Yeah.
So they get another opportunity at the next meeting.
Yep, lovely. So John proposed that one. Anyone like to second that one? I'll second it if I'm allowed from the chair. Can I see all those in favour, please? I think that's a full house again. Lovely, brilliant. And obviously next full council meeting, we'll see something on the agenda about the big grants, which we can look at.
Application process and policy.
That would be brilliant.
Separate out the red circled grants from the day-to-day, the rolling grants, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really good.
With a new thorough application for those grants.
Yeah, again, and it's not as if we're trying to make it impossible for people to apply for money. It's just, we are dealing with a significant amount of community money, and we need to see and be able to track where it's going and how it's,
For starters, I'd suggest the year-end accounts and a charity number.
Yeah, simple stuff. We look forward to that one at the next meeting. Lovely. Shall we go on to item number 5 then? Linda, do you want to talk to us about this one?
Admin, we are going to be looking at all bank accounts, as much as I don't want to after the time it's taken to get them sorted out.
Yeah.
Need a separate Lloyd's Bar account for the Assembly Hall. That can go to the Assembly Hall's general. So it seems sensible to close that down. But the committee knew and made that resolution.
Right, lovely. So what did you need from us for that one?
If you could make a resolution, then it's...
Yep. Oh, pardon. Sorry, John.
Thank you. Whilst I'm happy to propose this, I just want to ask the question of, we have one of the challenges at the moment that the council's banking is across more than one organisation, which means when you're doing check runs, if you've got people with signatories on different accounts, it gets all the more complicated. Whilst I appreciate we may need more than one bank account, is there any reason why we need more than one bank?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at that now, all of it. This was the actual accountant suggested that we did this for now.
Okay.
Yeah, we do need to look at having the general account for, regular payments into one bank, because we separate out Assembly Hall, Town Hall, and use admin in the account.
You, Adrian. Yep. All right, lovely. Adrian?
Yeah, I'm happy to second this proposal, but Linda knows that the banking needs sorting out. Yeah. And it is one of those things where more councillors are going to have to put their names forward to be able to sign cheques, because, Jeff and I have done it almost every month for the last 4 years. John does come in if one of us can't do it. it is absolutely vital that it can't always be the same people.
No, I agree. For audit as well. What,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Particularly as it's getting more complex, and you're going to have to. I mean, I'm pretty thorough on what I do anyway, and I do throw back checks where I can't find the invoice to go with it.
Mm.
But it needs tightening completely.
Yeah, it does.
And also, we do need, and it's not anybody's fault to the backs issue, but we do need to try to get the backs issue sorted out as well.
Yeah, we'll be going over to more payments by back.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not, Linda, I'm
Coming
not
off the
criticising.
check.
I know how difficult
No,
it's been.
yeah.
I know how many times I've sat on for 2 hours trying to talk to a bank who then, who
Yeah.
then offered me £10 for my time.
I have to be honest, I put it in the too difficult pile, but I can't anymore. We've got to get it.
No. And
It's going to be that
The
every
banks are a
councillor,
nightmare at the
I know.
moment.
that,
They're an
yeah.
absolute
I know.
nightmare.
I
the
know.
way forward, I suggest, is that every councillor becomes a check signatory, except the councillors that come in and do an audit, the ones that come and sign the bank recs. That way, the officers can mix up if we have to sign
Yep.
checks. Who does it? So it's not the same councillor every time, because again, that's unfair on the councillors, because
It's more likely to lead to fraud anyway.
yes, yeah,
If you think about it, if it's the same people doing it all the
Mm,
time, there's
mm.
always a higher possibility.
the opportunity for
Yeah,
the clerk or an
absolutely.
officer to be in cahoots
Yeah.
with the councillors. Yeah.
Yeah. Pat.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this before amongst ourselves, and I would have offered, but I already signed checks on three other accounts that are nothing to do with the town council, and I'm just sort of feeling that perhaps I shouldn't be doing that. So
Look,
it's just a thought,
yeah. The thing is, Pat, and what we all know is, look, couple more months, we're going to have a whole bunch of new councillors. There's going to be a lot more people who've got different availability, and who live close by, and we'll have a lot more flexibility. So I think it's just going to be one of those things again, Linda, which is let's wait till after the elections, and we'll have a bit more scope to deal with. Yes, John.
Yeah, the one thing I would like to kind of tag on to this that I think would be a really helpful aid memoir would be, could we do, Linda, like a sort of single side of A4 that gets laminated, that's actually the instructions to whichever councillor is signing off the checks of what they should expect to find for each check that they're paying, what information should be available to them in terms of, where it's stamped, which bits should be filled in. And I think really importantly, what the councillor is meant to countersign. Obviously, we sign the check, but each time I come in, and it's not that regular I come in, I freely admit, but each time I come in and countersign, sometimes the person's countersigns the check stub, sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they've countersigned the stamp on the invoice, sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they've countersigned, well, almost all the time they've countersigned the report, but I can remember one occasion and they hadn't. Sometimes there are purchase orders, sometimes. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that if we've got a bit of guidance that's there, for whoever is signing it off, to almost have like a checklist for each check that they sign, it would really help guarantee that it's done consistently.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think, Linda, you can add that to your induction packs that you're going to make for all the new councillors.
Sorry to come in there. And the same thing is obviously with backs as well. I mean, I know I make myself quite unpopular when I say, please, can I see the invoice? Because you can't authorise a backs invoice and a backs payment unless you've seen the invoice. And
Exactly.
Well, that was one of the auditors. That was one of the auditors' recommendations, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I've always been going back and saying no, I won't do this until I've seen the invoice.
Yeah, that's fine. That's being thorough.
It's a principle, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. So, John, were you going to propose that one?
Well, I'm just asking if I don't know. Do we need a resolution for it? I
don't think we do. No.
I'll just do it. Yeah. Just courtesy, really. I mean, I'm not being rude, but how many of you would have noticed?
What?
Didn't have a Lloyd's bar back account anymore.
No.
I might have done.
Adrian would have.
Because the checks come from the co-op, don't they?
Yeah.
We would have noticed when you went off on your 6-month cruise around the Bahamas with an
But not
excessively
on the
large.
bar tape from the last year.
No, not from last year. Right, lovely. Linda, if you're happy with that, I think the next
Yes,
one is
thank
just,
you.
date and time for the next meeting.
Yeah, I will let you know as soon as I've got the year end complete.
Yeah,
Need to have a meeting with the accountant.
don't really think we should be doing anything. There's no point in us
So,
making decisions so close when a new council's going to come in.
It's just so you know how
Yeah.
that you've left the council in the black and not the red before you hand over, or the new
Fantastic. Yeah,
council.
yeah. Hand it over. Lovely.
Does
Brilliant.
that mean that we're not allowed to run away with the money before then?
No, you can't. No,
I live in hope.
no. Go and buy a lottery ticket like everybody else does. Okay, lovely.
If you want to do that, Adrian, you better do it quick.
Yeah. In that case, then I think that's all of our items. So I'm happy to bring this to a close. And look, under an hour, so we can all go and have a cup of tea now. Okay.
All right.
All right. Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Okay, I'll end the meeting now. Linda, you all right?
Yeah. Okay. You.
I think so. I've just got to leave. I can stop.